So in this tutorial, I'm going to cover how to create the roofs. I'm going to break this up into two tutorials. One is just covering how to do a typical hip roof. This is where all of the roof, I guess, roof panel or roof sides are all kind of angling inward. That's known as a hip roof. And we're going to use a 3:12 ratio to create the hip roof over the second floor plan. Now, when we put the second floor on top of the first floor, which we're also going to do in this tutorial, um, we're actually going to have just an angled roof in this kind of area that is not covered by the second floor. Okay, and that's what the second tutorial is going to be, is just kind of how do we do an angled roof. So between these two lectures, we'll cover a hip roof and we'll cover the angled roof, which I think with both of those, if you have both of those two kind of um, or the knowledge of both of those two, you should be able to get by with a lot of different roof types. Okay, so we're going to get started. The very first thing is actually we're going to create some layers. I'm going to, as I mentioned, we're going to create the second floor, like the actual mass of the second floor, along with the first floor. So I'm going to create one layer that's just called floors. I'll create another one that says second floor. Oops, not at. Second floor. I don't know why I started with the second one first. And we'll do first floor as well. And then I'm going to not capitalize this. Drag and drop into my floors layer. So it works kind of as a subcategory. Oh, wait. I just select that one. There we go. And I'm going to just move that in there. I'm going to do the same thing for my roof. We're going to have two roofs. So roofs. We're going to create first. I don't want to call it first floor roof. We'll just call it first roof. We understand that that'll be the first floor roof. Seems weird to say floor and roof. Second roof. All right, and then we'll do the same thing. We're going to drag and drop, click, drag and drop. And then we're just gonna move this, click, drag, and move that up. Okay, so we have our two layers. I'm going to start off with my floors, and I'm going to come over here and draw a rectangle. And I'm going to actually just kind of orbit down below so that I'm looking at the building from down below. And I'm just going to draw a rectangle from one corner all the way to the other corner. And while I'm here, I might as well do the same thing with my first floor. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle from one corner to the next corner. And now this line work, this rectangle is going to serve as the line work to extrude curve. So we're going to extrude this, and we're going to make sure that we go down, and we're going to go down 1 foot. Okay, there we go. We're going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to click, make sure that we select the curve that we just drew, and extrude curve. Only this time we're going to go down 6 inches. Now remember that when we are extruding using the extrude curve, we have solid set to yes. And again, for my Mac users, that's going to be over here on the top left corner. Okay. We're going to go down 6 inches, enter. We don't need as thick of a flooring for the first floor as we do for the second floor. There's a lot more structure in this second floor, more framing, bigger beams, things like that. Over here, it's pretty much just concrete, and actually 6 inches is a little thick. We could probably get down to just 4, but we're gonna leave it at 6. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and select my second floor, come over here and put it in my second floor layer. So place that there, select this floor, and then come over here and I'm going to right click on first floor and put it up, change object layer. There we go. We go ahead and just test it out, make sure they're correct. And we are good. So now is the time to actually join these two massings together, right? Up until now, we've been able to really kind of model our first floor and our second floor separately, and makes it easy for us to orbit around inside here. But we've kind of done everything we can do. And now these next couple steps, which is the roofs and the stairs, that's going to require that this model is kind of assembled as one object or as, as an actual building. So the way I'm going to do this is simply select the entire object and move this. Now it's really important, just like every time that you use the move tool, that you click on where you're going. How do I say this? Before you move, figure out what it is that you want lined up to what, so that you know where to select from. Like in other words, if I just select this, use the move tool, and then just move it, right? Then I'm kind of eyeballing where it belongs. But if I say, well, technically, this corner here should line up to that corner right there. So now that I know that, then I'll go ahead and select the move. So I'll go move, and I'll grab the object from this corner here. And now I know exactly where these two should line up, and I'll click, and there we go. All right. Now the lines did not move because they were locked, and I'm okay with that. Actually, we could even just turn these lines off. Do I still have my rectangle? Yeah, I have that rectangle line. I have that rectangle line. Let's move those into the lines layer as well. Okay. So there you have it. This is, what the building will begin to actually look like. Okay. All right. So now we are going to work on the second floor roof. The way we're going to do this is we're going to start off by drawing a rectangle, okay, which will act as kind of like the base. And then we have to figure out, do we want to overhang? Okay, so, and if so, how far out do we want to overhang past the exterior, right? So I'm going to say typically it's about 1 to 2 feet is an overhang. You technically by code don't need an overhang. There's ways of detailing it so that you don't have an overhang. So this really is kind of aesthetic preference, environmental concerns, things like that will determine like the overhang of your, sorry, the distance, the dimension of your overhang, right? But we're going to go with this just standard 2 foot. Actually, I wouldn't say that's standard. We're going to go with a 2 foot overhang. I'd say 1 foot is more standard. So I'm going to select this offset, and I'm going to change the distance to 2 feet. Okay. And there we have it. Okay. Now I mentioned that we are using a 312 ratio for a hip roof, right? That means that the angle of my roof is going to go 3 inches up for every 12 inches out. So in other words, 3 inches up for every 1 foot. And so if we just did this overhang at 2 feet, that means that this overhang line is going to go down not 3 inches, but 6 inches because it's 2 feet. So I'm going to come over here, click on the gumball, and I'm going to go minus, because I want to go down, minus, actually it is minus 6 inches. And there you have it. Okay. And this actually now is the angle, right? If we were to draw a line, that is what a 312 angle looks like. Okay. Now I'm going to use a command called loft, and we haven't really covered any lofting yet. That becomes more of a command and a tool that we use later on in the lectures when we're starting to explore curvature and different kind of forms and shapes. Right now, everything has been pretty rectilinear. Um, but there is a command called loft, which essentially, let's have a little fun with this, which essentially will create a surface between two lines. Okay, so between two lines, it'll create a surface. So if I type in loft, select that curve and select that curve, hit enter, and then there's some general loft options, which we're going to just leave as is, right? And so now I have a surface that was created taking this curve and this curve. So we're going to take that same principle, but apply it here to our angle. And so I'm going to type in loft. I'm going to click there and click there. So I want to create a surface between these two. Okay, it's asking which direction do you want kind of the sweep. Think of at least in this situation, think of it as kind of like a sweep, the same way we've been doing the window profiles around two lines, right? So I'll hit, well, it doesn't really matter which way we go because it's all going to end up in the same way. So I'll hit enter and I'll just hit OK. And there is a surface that's at an angle, right? Most importantly, what I have are these lines here, okay? Now the next thing I'm going to do is essentially join these lines, okay, or find where they actually meet. Now there's a 2D command called fillet that we use whenever we want to round off. And I may have covered this one. Whenever we want to round off, not fillet surface, just fillet. Whenever we want to round off the corner wherever two lines meet. So if I click there and then click there, right, it gives me this 2-foot radius because I entered 2 feet. However, if I use fillet, I could change the radius and say I don't want any radius and just go 0. So 0 feet. And what that'll do is it'll essentially join these two. It'll connect them where they both intersect. And so that's what we're going to be using over here to find that point where these two lines intersect. So I'm going to use fillet, and I'll go ahead and click on this line and then click on this line, and there you have it. I did forget to mention that you need to have the radius set to 0, right? So let me do that one more time. I'll type in fillet, make sure that the radius is set to 0. If not, click on it and change that to 0 inches. And then I'll click on this line and this line. And so now we essentially have all lines that we need, right? And when we come over here, you could see that they're all following the 312 slope that we've created, okay? At this point, I could go ahead and delete this lofted surface because I no longer need it. All I needed it was to generate these lines here, okay? But I am going to continue using the loft tool because we talked about how the loft tool will generate a surface between two lines, right? And so we can use the loft tool and select this line and then select this line and hit enter. We'll hit OK. And now we have a surface. I can go ahead and do that again 3 more times, making sure that I'm always selecting the correct line work. And I don't have to retype it because remember the space bar always remembers the last command that you entered. So if I just hit the space bar, it'll pull up the loft tool again. I'm not changing anything in the options. I'll do this one more time. Space bar, click, click, and space bar to finalize it. Okay. And now we have kind of the beginnings of our roof, of our hip roof. Okay. Now here's the thing. Hip roofs, how do I explain? Hip roofs are actually constructed so that they sit on top of the wall, right? In other words, a rafter will come in at an angle. They kind of notch the wood rafter so that it just sits on top of the wall, and then they bring it down, and then they continue the angle, right? Now over here, what you notice, or what you may have noticed, is that the way we have this now, it's actually just sitting at this edge. So if we were to extrude this outward, then technically this roof is not actually sitting on anything because it's just touching that corner. If we were to if we were to extrude it down, then it's essentially running into, it'll run straight down into the wall. So what we're going to have to do is actually move it down in place so that it's aligned here. And that's going to be, sounds easy, but it's going to be a little bit tricky. So and I'll show you why. Let's go into the front view. So there's my wall, right? Um, there's the actual wall. So I need to essentially take this and move this down. The problem is I don't actually have this distance. And I can't really use the distance command because I don't have anything to click on, right? So if I come in over here, and if I was to just say click there, look at my cursor over here. I don't have, and you see it's wanting to find the distance over here because I don't have anything to point to, anything to grab to at the top here. So what I'm going to do is actually draw a line from this point right on the inside, and I'm going to go just straight up, okay? And so now in theory, my zoom's not really working, so I'm going to select this and just hit zoom selected. That's still a little bit too, let's select this wall and zoom selected. There we go. Okay, so if I was to move this down, the intersect command, watch it's going to work right now. Oh no, it doesn't. The intersect command does not actually work when it's referring to intersecting a line versus a surface because they're two entirely different things. A line is a line, it's a single thing, there's no thickness to it. A surface also has no thickness to it, but it's an actual surface, right? So when they intersect, Revit doesn't actually recognize it. So I can't actually snap to that point. So what I'm going to have to do instead is use the trim command so that I can cut this line exactly where these two do intersect. And that's where the intersect tool, or that's where Revit will then, sorry, Rhino will then connect, or will then kind of select the line to be trimmed. So I'll go ahead and select this. I'll hit enter, and then I'll go ahead and just click on that line. And now we're not asking Rhino to find the intersection point. All we're asking it to do is to go from endpoint to endpoint. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll come over here. I'll just do a quick cross window, making sure that I'm only selecting the roof. Come back over here. I'll use the move tool. And I'm actually going to grab this. Yeah, right there. You have to make sure that you're in the perspective mode, that the cursor is actually where you want it to be, and you're not accidentally moving it, grabbing a different point, like say this one, right? So just make sure that everything is where it needs to be. So I'll click there, and then I'm going to come down and place that right there. At this point, I can go ahead and delete this line. We have these two lines that we used originally to create the loft, but since we moved it down, we no longer need them. But I'm going to go ahead and just put them in my lines layer. Okay. And so there we have this base surface, or the surface that is essentially intersecting with the corner of the wall, which is how it gets constructed, right? Now, the next thing to do is to extrude the surface up, okay? Now, here's the thing. If we just select the surface and we use the command extrude, because we have to give this a thickness, sorry. That's why we have to extrude it up. So extrude this up, extrude surf, right? Now, if I extrude the surface, this surface has to go up 12 inches, right? Which is 1 foot. But there's a couple things. First of all, this is not straight, right? And so when I come over here to select this and I do the same thing, extrude surface, 12 inches, that's going to cause a problem, right? There shouldn't be a gap there. That's problem number one. Problem number two is that we actually don't need the actual, how do I say this? The cross section of this, the cross section of the roof, because we offset it parallel instead of going straight up, technically isn't the 12 inches that we need. We need 12 inches from here going straight up, not 12 inches from here at an angle, right? So what we're going to do is come over here and we're going to duplicate an edge, dupe edge, use the command dupe edge. I'm not sure if we used that command before. Duplicate the edge, and I'm going to come over here to the front window, and I'm just going to select one of these angles. So I'll go ahead and click, doesn't matter which one, surface. Okay, so now we've selected that angle there, and I'm going to just move this, not move this, straight up. Where did it go? I moved it down. Let's undo. Okay, let's just move this straight up. Okay. And then we'll offset this 12 inches. Now it's important that you do this part in the front view, okay? Because technically here you could see that it's working well, but in a perspective mode, you realize that we're actually at an angle here. And that becomes a little bit harder to work with these dimensions where it's kind of, shooting at an angle like that. The next thing I'm going to do is just draw a line. Doesn't matter where, and we just want it to go straight up. Okay. Now this is the distance I actually want to extrude up. Okay. So the nice thing is that if we were to extrude two surfaces at the same time, then they actually become parallel, right? Or then they actually come joined. So if we use if I could figure out how to spell it, extrude surface, right? And I'm just going to go just for the sake of it right now. You see that when we extrude both of them, they're actually joined. Okay. So what that means is that if I can actually select all four of these, and I'm in the perspective mode, that's also important, that I'm in the perspective mode, that I type in extrude surface, okay? And now I could extrude all of these. However, that's the distance that I need, right? So what I'm going to do is set base point, and this is going to still extrude the surface, but I'm actually going to not start at the base of this surface, which is where it typically by default starts. What I'm going to do is set the base point, and I'm going to say I want to start from this point. So I'm going to click, move my cursor up, and I want to finish and end at this point. Okay. And so now we have I'll go ahead and delete this. Now we have a roof that has a thickness that's actually 12 inches. Okay. And so this I can go ahead and now select, and move this into my second floor roof. So I'll go ahead and change object layer. I'm going to go ahead and hide it. Let's see. Can we delete this? Let's go ahead and select all these and delete that. We're going to turn the second roof back on, and we still have surfaces. So make sure to actually delete that then. If we come in over here, you could actually see it too. You could see that the wall, or sorry, the roof is actually kind of sitting on top of the wall, right? That's what it should look like. You should not have this angle lined up to the outside of the wall. It should be lined up to the inside of the wall the way it's shown right here, okay? Now, the very last thing is to simply just draw a ceiling, because if we were to get in here somehow, there's no ceiling here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the second floor roof. These angles right there, let's go ahead and select both of these and move these to the lines layer. And what I'll go ahead and do at this point is, let's go ahead and just draw a rectangle from one corner. Now this time it's from the inside to the inside wall. And we'll select this, and we're just going to go ahead and extrude curve. And it doesn't have to be that much. We'll just go 1 inch, although it's technically less than 1 inch. Okay. And let's go ahead and put this in the roofs layer. Let's attach it to the second roof. I could, if I wanted to, and if it was important, create another layer called ceiling. But for this project, for what we're doing, we can just attach it to the second floor roof. So let's go ahead and select it. Oh, wait, select this, change object layer. Take this and move this into the lines layer. And when we turn on the second floor roof, we now have the ceiling along with the actual roof. Okay. So there you go. That's how we create the second floor roof. In the next tutorial, I'll go ahead and cover how to create the first floor roof.